Entering the atmosphere in T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined by Doominal Crossing, and filling in for Dakota Lasky this week, we've got our pal Zach Gio, all the way from South Georgia, where I hear the weather is not quite it's not quite what we're hoping for right now. What's going on down in South Georgia there, Zach?
Man, we had good old Hurricane Debbie come through here. It was just a Category 1 storm, and it died down to a tropical storm, but it knocked our power out for about 3 hours, and nobody will dehydrate because there is water literally everywhere. So, but we're good. We're safe. No damage done to the yard or the house, and our dog is happy as a bug. So we're good.
Well, there you go. That's good. It's about to start storming in my neck of the woods here in I think about an hour. Man, my dog does not like thunder, so it's been a long weekend. Doom, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Yeah, I was just saying, I think we all got our own dog stories going on. So last night, my roommate was coming back from his grandmother's house, and on the way, he found a stray pit bull on the way home. But unfortunately, the shelter, they don't open until tomorrow. So for now, we're just keeping it in the backyard. I was just doing some yard work before we started the podcast. I was playing with her, and she is just an absolute sweetheart. I'm definitely gonna miss her when she goes. Yeah. Unfortunately, we can't bring her into the house because our current dog, Howdy, owned by our other roommate, would absolutely freak out. He is very territorial, and so we're keeping those two very separate for now. But yeah, otherwise that's been pretty much what's been going on with me. Very excited for that first Four Figures gravity suit coming up soon, and yeah, can't wait to talk about some Metroid today.
Let me ask you guys a question. I can't remember. Is it a holiday in America today? Do you guys have the day off?
No.
It's a holiday today. It's Victoria Day in Canada today, so it's like a stat holiday today. So that's why I'm off. For this nice long weekekend. But you guys don't have anything, hey?
No, it was National Stay Home because of Hurricane Deborah Day for me. So.
Victoria Day, National.
yeah.
Oh well.
I just had the day off, so I got nothing.
Well, I enjoyed a day off for all of us here over on my end here. So yeah, we have a fun show to get to today, actually, and this was kind of a spur of the moment type of show decision here. We were going to do this show in a couple of weeks, but we were just like, I don't know, why not just do it now? It's a lot of people seem to be interested in the topic, so yeah, we're gonna dive into. I think it's gonna be a positive show mostly here. We're gonna talk about our favorite things from our least favorite Metroid games. And so let's throw a few qualifiers out there before we actually dive in, because what we're going to do is the three of us, we're going to give you our favorite things, but our least favorite Metroid games. Let's see how many times I can mess that up today. And then, so we're going to give you our personal ones. Then we're going to read off a bunch of fan submissions, because we had a lot of people chime in and give us their opinions and everything like that. So a lot of them, as you might imagine, are centered around the same couple of games, which I'm sure that you don't need to be a detective to figure that out. But like I said, like what we wanted to throw out here as a qualifier was just because these are our least favorite Metroid games doesn't make them bad games. You know, they're still, as we'll talk about here today, they all have their own redeeming qualities, all have their own good things going for them, and all have a lot of really positive things that you can take away from playing these games. So, we did this, like maybe a year or two ago over on the Zelda cast, and we had a really fun discussion and got a lot of very interesting opinions, and we used the Zelda Dungeon writing staff instead of fan submissions. So I think this is more like, to the people, so to speak. So I'm looking forward to this, and Doom, you suggested this for this week, so this is a good suggestion, buddy.
I thought it'd be, a fun idea because, especially in regards to, other MM Federation Force, those games get bashed a lot, including by ourselves. We certainly are not ones to hold back. But I also think, I think it's fun to have some positivity, once in a while, and have an episode really dedicated to positive aspects, because being negative all the time, it gets exhausting, kind of on a random tangent. But there's this thing on YouTube where angry reviews. It started with AVGN, and I still love him, but there's been this trend ever since then of the angry YouTube reviewer that has to be angry about something in order to get views. And I'm personally just kind of sick of the whole thing for the most part, with rare exceptions like AVGN.
Dude,
so,
what's that YouTube channel where the guy's just oh, there's a million things wrong in a movie, and none of it matters. Nobody cares. Yeah. It's I'm sure I've never watched it. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but I was like, dude, you seem like such a geek. Nobody cares about this. Come on.
Dude,
Come on.
He'll find a piece of dirt that's the wrong color and count it as a sin. He's so very technical about what he considers a sin. But there is cinema wins too, so that kind of combats it a little bit. So
I do like the Cinema Wins channel. I do vouch for them.
And I will say a lot of the sins in Cinema Sins are satirical. So they're
That's what I thought. Yeah. So no shade to you, pal. I just, I think a lot of people take that concept though and are very literal with it. So we are not Metroid sinning today. We are Metroid winning today. And I'm excited to talk about this and dive into it. And so what we're going to do, like I said, we're going to go through, and the three of us are going to give our favorite things about our least favorite Metroid games. And I'm just going to tell you guys right now, I'm going to cheat, because I'm going to talk about 3 games, and they're the 2 of them that you're expecting. But I realized today when I was thinking about this, I was like, what's my least favorite Metroid game? Because I think all my least favorite Metroid games have strong redeeming qualities to them. I really do. And I'll just go ahead and say it here. I kind of assumed my least favorite Metroid game would be Metroid Other M, and I don't think it is. I don't think it's my least favorite Metroid game. It's in the bottom 3, but it's not. And there's a big gap from the bottom 3 to the rest of the games. I will admit that, but it's not my least favorite. So I can go first if you guys want, but if anyone feels like they want to step up and talk about their favorite moments from their least favorite Metroid game, or games, if you want to cheat like I'm going to cheat, because I'm going to say for all 3, feel free, and let's get the show on the road. What do you think?
I don't think that's cheating at all. When I proposed the episode, I specifically used games plural, so I intended it for it to be multiple games, because one game would I think that'd be kind of boring, personally.
Well,
indeed.
So. I also think it's not cheating, because out of all of these Metroid games, sure, there are things that we dislike about certain ones, but all in all, these are games that we'll eventually go back and play again, because it's Metroid and we love it. So it's kind of hard to just take one game and focus on that, because there's little redeeming things about every single bad thing about the series, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. Okay, well, I have no problem going first if you guys want me to get us kicked off here. Or, if, like I said, if anyone wants to go, step right on up. But I'm ready.
Pop off, brother.
You're already teed off, man. Let's go.
Okay. I'm glad you said that, because what I was realizing about myself when I was preparing for this list, and I was like, okay, there's 3 games. Metroid kind of exists in that scale where the worst Metroid game to me is a 9 out of 10, right? It's still they're still amazing, but I would say that 3 games kind of fall outside of that for me, and maybe they're a 6 to 7 to maybe whatever out of 10. So not quite on the same level as all those other Metroid games. And for me, those Metroid games, probably no surprise here, Metroid Other M, Metroid Prime Federation Force. And I was kind of thinking to myself, what's the game that I just don't want to play as much as the other games? And I was like, would I rather play Other M, or would I rather play Metroid Prime Hunters? And I was like, I think I'd rather play Metroid Other M, if I'm being perfectly honest with myself. And so I think I might say that of every Metroid game, Metroid Prime Hunters, I think I knew it wasn't my favorite, but I think I might go ahead and say it could be my least favorite. And the only reason that I might say that it's a little bit lower on my list than, say, a Federation Force would be I think the controls in Federation Force are a little bit easier. to navigate. They're more modern, let's put it that way. So what really holds Hunters back for me, more so than it's very different, of course, than a standard Metroid game. It's a multiplayer based game, of course, but what really holds it back for me is the controls. But one thing that I really love about Metroid Prime Hunters, and Dak has talked about this before actually, is it did a really good job of expanding the Metroid universe, like just giving more races, more beings, more like ideas, possibilities, opportunities. I mean, without Metroid Prime Hunters, what are we talking about in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond? It's not Silex, it's something else. And because of Metroid Prime Hunters, that also made Metroid Prime Federation Force, as we talked about last week when we dove into Silex, like that kind of makes it almost worth it right there. So I really do love that about Metroid Prime Hunters. I think that it's just a really, just kind of like a really good job of taking advantage of like all of the different possibilities that exist within this universe and opening up those doors and the horizons. And I will say this too, like it's weird because I like this, but I don't like this about the game. But like, I like that it gave a couple of different control options for players. Like it had the stylus controls and had the button controls and everything like that. And I think that was in 2006 a little bit ahead of the curve for first-person shooters, particularly because it was like ahead of the game in terms of like dual analog controls. So I think that it did well too. Now, unfortunately, neither one of those control schemes quite reaches what I'm looking for me, but I think that it was cool that the game did that nevertheless. So that was what I wanted to lead off with, was Prime Hunters, and give it a little bit of a little bit of shine.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think both your criticisms and your praises are both fair for that game. I personally never had an issue with the controls, but I was also like, 11 or 12 when I first played it, and so I've kind of had that control scheme ingrained in me, and so nowadays, because it's ingrained, I don't really have a problem playing it. But if I played it for the first time today, yeah, I'd probably hate it.
Yeah, I actually got it in the mail a few weeks ago because I'd never played Hunters, and I tried playing it on my 3DS, and it felt like I was doing carpal tunnel simulator. So I figured out a way to put it on my PC, and now I can play it with mouse and keyboard. So it's a lot of fun. It's a really good game.
And you know what? I just want to be very clear, since it sounds like we're picking on the game, and I guess we kind of are, but like, no, this is something that almost every DS game, the Nintendo game, is guilty of. Like almost every single one. Like every single one kind of had this gimmick that was attached to it, where you had to use a style. I'm a Zelda fan, obviously. Everybody knows that. And the two Zelda games are almost unplayable because of the touchscreen. And there's a lot of other games that kind of follow suit. So I don't necessarily think it's appropriate to put the blame on Hunters itself, when I'm sure they had directive to be like, okay, make this touchscreen accessible, So I would say that. I got a couple other more here, but let's go over Doom. What do you got? What's one of your favorite things, but one of your least favorite Metroid games?
So we kick it off with one of the basic entries that everyone is expecting. Metroid Other M. Obviously, this is a game we've ragged on a lot of times, but it does have some really good pop-off moments. And I'm going to start off with probably the biggest pop-off moment in the game. We'll talk about... Well, there's a future episode we're planning sometime later where we'll go into this a bit more detail. But, you finish Metroid Other M, and, it's one of the lamest... I can't even call it a boss fight. It's a point-and-click sequence, and everything that follows is horrible. And you think, really, we're ending the game off on that note? But then you go for 100%. Andy knows exactly where this is going. You're going for 100%. You revisit the bottle ship again. You're collecting the items, and then you find a new passage with your power bombs that you couldn't open before. And you start following it. And then there's a hallway enemy gauntlet, and you arrive in a brand new room. And out of nowhere, Phantoon, back from Super Metroid, in... not just by far the best fight in Other M, but quite possibly one of the series' best fights of all time. This fight is insane. It is so good. Phantoon, the art direction on him looks incredible. Samus looks absolutely badass with all her finishers. It's just such a killer fight.
Awesome.
And, for all the issues that Other M has, at the very least, I can say it goes out with a bang if you're going for 100%.
Yeah.
And they really did the enemy gauntlet in the hallway really well too, because it really stresses you out and makes you focus on just moving further and further, and then you have to fight not one but two of those, what are they, like dragonfly gargoyle looking things that they're just a pain in the ass to fight, but you have to fight two of them, and then I love the Fantoon boss fight, man. It is so awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I you know what? Maybe I'll just kind of, because obviously I'm going to talk about Other M, so I'm just going to talk about it now, because, I mean, we might as well. I think that there's a lot to really like about Metroid Other M. I really do. Now, do I think it's a great game? No. Do I think it's probably the biggest swing and miss opportunity in the series? Yeah, definitely. But, like, I think there's a lot of cool stuff there that just didn't... It's like they had all these, like, cool ideas, and then just it fell apart with some key decisions, and those key decisions permeate most things. But, like, the game itself, like, it has the finishing moves. Those are awesome. I really like the premise of the story. I think the deleter, like the whodunit mystery, is really cool. I like the idea of AI. I think that's really cool. It has a bunch of awesome boss fights, like Fantoon and Nightmare to come to mind as some really good ones. The Queen Metroid fight I thought was really cool. Like, I think even the areas are kind of cool. Like, Zach, we just did Great Metroid Area Ranking. You're like, what the... Biosphere, really? And I was like, it's kind of cool. It's a cool area. Like, there's that one, like, big tree room that you run up, and, like, you're running around in circles. You got the big, like, brontosaurus. Like, there's some really cool stuff that this game does. It's just, like, unfortunately, the controls and the story direction almost nullify a lot of what this game does. So, like, it's very easy for me to talk about a lot of things I like from Other M, actually. Like, a lot of things. I think there's a lot to really like about that game. It just, you know, the other stuff, you got to take that too, unfortunately.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about Other M actually is its soundtrack. There's not very many moments or musical moments in the game that I didn't like, and the save room plus her entrance fanfare is one of my favorites in the series. It's like data recording and shield restoration sequence activated. That to me was always really cool. I thought that was awesome, but you know, when you have to wait for Adam to say that you can use an item, it kind of makes you forget that you just enjoyed what was in the last room.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's tough.
For me, I wanted to talk a little bit about Other M, but mine that stuck out in my head was Metroid 2. I have really enjoyed Metroid 2 a lot. My first experience with it was Samus Returns for the 3DS. And that made me really curious to go back and play the original Game Boy one, which I could not do. I could not finish it. But one of my favorite things about that game is Samus's interaction with the baby Metroid. Once you defeat the queen in the genetics laboratory, right? That's the name of the area.
That's what we're going to call it, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think they call it anything in particular in Metroid 2, but we know
Area
what you're talking
9.5.
Yeah.
But no, her stumbling upon the baby Metroid floating up and basically imprinting on Samus as its mom, and then you've got, because of the baby Metroid, you get one of the coolest storylines that's set up in Super Metroid, Metroid Fusion, and then Metroid Dread. The baby Metroid sacrifices itself to save Samus, and then she's infected by X-parasites and infused with Metroid DNA, and she talks back about the baby Metroid, saying that it saved her life twice over, and it just turns her into this badass, awesome, like, demon Metroid at the end of Dread, and it's all because of that little interaction with the baby Metroid at the end of Return of Samus.
Mm-hmm.
And in the original game, you just look at the egg and it pops out, and then you go to your ship, and that's it. But Samus Returns gives it so much emotion and so much more depth because of how well Mercury Steam does those 2.5D cutscenes. And so, while it's not necessarily my favorite Metroid game because of the repetition of facing the Metroids, the aggravation that I experienced going through the areas, and the item hunt, that redeems it a lot in my eyes. And plus, the music's nothing to scoff at either. So, I love that a lot.
I think the music in Metroid 2, for a Game Boy title, like, it doesn't have very many tracks, but, like, every track is awesome. Like, almost every single track is incredible. Even like the Surface, like the original like 8-bit Surface theme, I think is great. Yeah, you know what? I think that there's, again, a lot to like about Metroid 2. Like, and I like Metroid 2 a lot, like the original Metroid 2. And obviously Samus Returns is like one of my favorite Metroid games. Maybe not right now, but it will be again after I'm done with this guide in about a week. But yeah, I think Metroid 2 is just like such a great game that really uses its limitations to its advantage, like a lot.
Yeah, and without Metroid 2, we would have never gotten AM2R, which is probably one of my
That's true.
favorite 2D Metroid experiences. As I was telling Andy last week when we were doing the Great Metroid Area Ranking, I loved every second of AM2R, and that wouldn't have happened without Metroid 2.
Cheap plug. You gotta go play AM2R to everybody listening.
Oh, dude. Absolutely.
AM2R is amazing. Please go play it right now. Pause the podcast, beat AM2R, and come back.
Yeah.
Don't actually do that.
We'll see in a couple days. Doom, any thoughts on Metroid 2?
Metroid 2 was actually going to be one of the games I was going to talk about. So yeah, that's actually like a perfect segue.
Okay.
To talk about Metroid 2, because and we talked about this at the start of the podcast, but when I was thinking of favorite things about least favorite Metroid games, doesn't necessarily mean games that I don't like. We did a definitive ranking of the original Metroid 2, I want to say like a couple of years ago now, and while we had a lot of critiques against it, at the end of the day, I still really like Metroid 2, and in my opinion, I think Metroid 2 is one of the most unique entries in the whole series that... Samus Returns and even AM2R, which is one of my all-time favorite games, period. I don't even think AM2R fully captures the unique atmosphere that Metroid 2 has. You have that incredible main surface theme that's kind of like your safe area and the main hub area, and then every time you leave that, it just instantly the tone just instantly snaps. It's brooding, it's desolate. And it's such a unique interpretation of Metroid, because Metroid's always ever since Hip Tanaka trying to fuse the music and the environment together, but Metroid 2 does it in such a way where there's very little melody in general. Like occasionally you'll get that like Chozo Ruins motif, or you'll get like the Metroid battle theme, but for the most part you have just kind of this collection of sound effects with seemingly no melody, seemingly no rhythm or meter, and but it's almost like an interpretation of the environment itself. And the further you dig down, there's reflections in the environment that almost mimic it. Like you'll start encountering less enemies and more Metroids that like give this impression that like the Metroids are becoming more dominant in the food chain. And it's such a subtle bit of storytelling that adds so much to to the actual world building in this game. And the fact that like this game from like 1991, before I was even born, was able to achieve something like this, it just continues to blow me away. And again, especially because as much as I love Samus Returns and especially AM2R, I don't even think those remakes fully capture that essence of the original Metroid 2.
Yeah, no, it's really special when you can tell a story and capture emotion with some pixels and some 8-bit music. And I think Metroid does that better than most older games and current games, if I'm being honest. But I'm also a Zelda fan, so I can't really knock too hard.
Before you were born in 1991, oh my god, this young lad. Holy moly! All right, well, I have one more game that I want to talk about. Again, it's no surprise here. We're talking about Metroid Prime Federation Force. I really think if this game just would have come out 5 years later, we really wouldn't rag on it as much as we do. I mean, we would rag on it. Like the ending is not good. Like the final boss battle is not good. But one of the things that I really like about this game, we've already talked about. I really like the Silex Easter egg that's involved there. But another thing that I think this game does really cool as well is lets you customize your mech a little bit, which is something that I think is missing from the main series overall. And not necessarily like the Samus's suit, because I do think that there's like something cool about finding like Samus's new suit, but maybe there is kind of a middle ground there where you can customize it. And like for anybody that hasn't played Metroid Prime Federation Force, you can get like there's these little CD-ROMs that you find out. For anybody born before 1991, CD-ROMs are little discs, okay? You used to insert them into your computer. So you find these CD-ROMs around, and you like they give you different augmentations. So like maybe your aim is better, your missile expansion loadout is higher, whatever it happens to be, right? So I thought that was a cool idea, and I really actually quite like how Federation Force uses like a ton of different amiibo functionality to like give you unique paint jobs and stuff like that for your mech. Like I have the I think I had the Metroid from Samus Returns. They added support to the game for that later on so that you could get like a Metroid paint job, and it was really cool. That was like my default Federation Force kind of, paint job when I played it. So yeah, you know what, another positive thing I'll say about the game is that there are some standout levels. I think that there's about 20 or 21 levels in the game, and I'd say about like 3-4 of them are really fun. The rest of them are probably like they range anywhere from like mostly like they're fine to just playable, and there's maybe a couple in there that are kind of stinkers, but like there's some levels that are really really fun, and like a lot of I had a good time playing them, and they didn't overstay their welcome, and the control scheme kind of isn't that bad once you get used to it. So again, I feel like there are some things in Federation Force that I definitely don't mind. But my big takeaway here was I was like, I don't even think Metroid Other M is my second least favorite Metroid game. I think it's my third. Like I think it's kind of, not that it's up there, but at least it's maybe higher than those other two. So some positive things for Federation Force, and I'm sure we'll get to some fan submission ones here that we'll talk about as well, and we'll try and get to all. Well, we'll try and get to all of them. I don't think we will, but yeah, that's one thing I would say about Federation Force as well.
I actually haven't gotten the chance to play Federation Force, so
I don't think you're alone.
Yeah, I've watched a playthrough of it, but I don't think that counts.
Doom, any kind words for
NEStroid? No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
Okay. So I will say one thing I do really like about the concept of Federation Forces co-op is this idea of shared equipment. I actually think that's a really unique idea, and that's something. If Metroid does do like a co-op spin-off game again, I do hope to see that come back, because I thought it was really cool. It's like, hey, we only have we only have like 5 super missiles, and we have to spread this out throughout the entire team, and the entire team is limited slots too. And so you can either do like, okay, one team member is going to be the healer, one team's going to be the demo, or you can even mix and match, like, hey, maybe this player gets a heal, this player gets a heal, this player, they're not as good, so we're going to give them 2 heals, and so it's a class-based co-op game, but it allows you a surprising amount of customization for the classes, and you can kind of play it as as traditional as you wanted, or just get absolutely nutty with it. And I think that's really cool, and I hope that's something Nintendo experiments with again, even if it's not in Metroid.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like I said, if this game would have came out after Samus Returns, honestly, even before Metroid Dread, if it had came out after Samus Returns, I think that a lot of the negativity around this game kind of subsides. And I think you've seen it slowly kind of come back a little bit. I mean, nobody's sitting here saying that this is like an amazing blow-away game. I think that we could all agree there's, it's an average game. Let's just call it what it is. But it does like have some very cool things going on for it. So again, it's kind of like they had the ideas, they had the pieces, it just maybe wasn't necessarily all in the right spot. Okay, well, so those are my 3. Do we have any others that we want to talk about here? Zach, any other games you want to bring up? And then Doom, you got NEStroid?
Well, you guys have actually hit the nail on the head with a couple of the ones that I was thinking about. So okay. I think I'll stick with my little Metroid 2 shtick.
Okay.
Because other than that, I just enjoy them all.
I'm ready to defend NEStroid here, Doom. Hit me with what you got.
Absolutely. I think NEStroid is very similar to the original Legend of Zelda in that there are so many different paths that you can carve throughout the game, and there's so many different ways that you can play it. And you kind of obviously, you kind of saw how the original Zelda translated to Breath of the Wild, and I'm wondering if there's almost a future where some similar step is taken to the original NEStroid, because you can play that game traditionally, or much like Zelda and Breath of the Wild eventually, you can skip your way past those statues and just go straight to Mother Brain, if you know what you're doing. And there is an unprecedented level of freedom in that first Metroid game. It's incredibly vague, classic 80s Nintendo, but it's incredibly vague. But if you're willing to explore, and you're talking with friends on the playground, there's all sorts of different tech that you can figure out. A lot of it is unintentional, granted, but still tech nonetheless. And that level of freedom, I wonder what that would look like in a modern Metroid title today. It does intrigue me.
Doom, it's really cool that you say that, because I've actually been thinking recently with what Nintendo has done with, the original Legend of Zelda and then Breath of the Wild. What if they take a slightly more open approach to Prime 4? What if they give you a little bit more of that freedom? I'm sure that's a discussion for another time. But
what a good plug to listen to our "What Would an Open World Metroid Title Look Like" episode, which is available on OmegaMetroid.com. I have to interject with something here really quickly, Doom. About once a year, I would say for the last 5 or 6 years, the owner of Zelda Dungeon is a guy named Masi Segopian. He's one of my good friends, and him and I, sometimes we just get together and we hang out in voice chat, we catch up and whatever. And I would say at least once a year, he starts ragging on NEStroid. He thinks it's like not one of the best 50 games on the NES. He has this vendetta against NEStroid. It's so like the reason I bring it up is I'm sure be like sickened to hear you compare NEStroid to the original Zelda, which is the exact same comparison that I made as well. Because I was like, they're kind of two peas in a pod, buddy, because they're both a little obtuse. They're both a little of their time, let's just say. But if you're willing to experience them the way that they were meant to be, both of them are really, really fun. Like, really fun. Yes, there's certainly, I'd say that probably the single biggest thing about NEStroid that would stop players from playing it is the lack of map. But like, if you got a map, like it's really not that bad. It's really not that bad. And I would say the same thing about Zelda, but less for a map and more so like go where you need to go.
I was just going to say, one of these days, I'm going to play that Super Metroid port of NEStroid, because, I don't know, there's something about that. That looks like the missing... Because I've been, for the longest time, I've been on that other side of NEStroid, where it's like, oh, irrelevant, we got Zero Mission, who cares? But I've been slowly, over the years, been leaning more into dipping my toes back in again. And there's something about that SNES... That SNES port in particular, it has just enough quality of life improvements while still preserving, that original game.
Yeah.
To where I'm like, I don't know, this seems kind of cool. Maybe this is my way back in. And then I'm going to say it's better than Hollow Knight and everyone cancels me again.
I got to say, like, I was with you. Like, when we even started Omega, like, way back when, almost 5 years ago. I was like, there's really no need to ever play NEStroid because Zero Mission exists. And you know what? That's fair enough. If you feel like that, I wouldn't try and talk you out of it. But I will say, like, doing this podcast, like, it really got me back into NEStroid. And I do think it's worth playing. I really do. I think it has its own unique little, little identity that works well for it there. So just wanted to throw that out there into the world. Okay, well, holy moly. We asked for some things from our listeners here and our fans over on Twitter. And we were like, hey, what are your favorite things about your least favorite Metroid games? And we had a plethora of responses. And actually, I want to start off because I saw them coming in and I was like, okay, bonus challenge. If your least favorite game is Other M or Federation Force, what's your favorite thing about your second least favorite game? Brother, I got to read one here that's going to break your heart, Doom. Are you ready for this? Have you read any of these, by the way? Or are you ready to be surprised?
I've read a few of them. I don't think I've read the majority of them, and I definitely also read some comments that definitely didn't understand the assignment and just put more negative things. And it's like, buddy, you didn't read it at all.
I did see there's a few of those, so no worries. Try again when we do this somewhere down the road. This one came up, and I immediately thought of you, Doom. And Zach, let me ask you a question after I'm done reading this. This is from JD Dragon 272. Bonus challenge answer. I really love the remix of the Brinstar theme Space Pirate Frigate from Metroid Prime Pinball. Zach, you ever
Okay.
played Metroid Prime Pinball?
I've watched gameplay of it, but I've never played it. I didn't have a DS until a couple years ago.
You know,
I've never put my hands on it.
So I don't like the implications of that. That does break my heart. But the Space Pirate Frigate is an absolute banger theme.
It is.
They're not wrong.
I will say, so I kind of like excluded pinball from my list. I mean, for obvious reasons, right? Like, you could still draw comparisons from Hunters, Federation Force, obviously other M to the rest of the series, but pinball is just like its own. I mean, that's its own thing completely. So I felt like it would be unfair to include that. But I will say, like, the music in pinball, like the original tracks, it's awesome. Like, and that, if anyone has never played pinball, if you've ever played Smash Bros. Brawl, I believe it is, and there's that one really wicked remix where it's like, Samus is under fire.
Samus is under fire.
That's from pinball, and it's awesome. I love that, actually.
The only place I ever heard that was Super Smash Bros.
Right?
I always hated it.
I love that intro, man. Samus is under fire. It just reminded me of like a cartoon from the early 90s. Like, and by the way, this is completely off topic here, but I've been watching this new Batman Cape Crusader show. It is amazing. It's amazing.
It's really good. I want to start watching it now that I've finally wrapped up the boys.
I hate to be shilling for like something on Amazon Prime, but like, damn, this is awesome.
Look, I am certainly the furthest thing from an Amazon fan, but like, hey, their TV programming has been absolutely nailing it.
Yeah.
The Boys has been consistently incredible. Invincible Season 2 is fantastic. Fallout, I'll straight up just say Fallout is the best video game property I've ever seen to date. It's insanely good. And yeah, everything I've heard about Cape Crusader is off the charts too, so I'm very excited to check it out.
Must have never seen that Super Mario Bros. Movie starring Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo.
This guy right here.
Andy,
don't listen to him. Don't listen to him.
You need to log off after that one, brother.
I love that movie. That's one of my favorite movies. All right, let's keep going here. This is surprising. Okay, this is from Dom of Dune. Metroid Fusion has some fun boss fights. I think Metroid Fusion has some of the best boss fights in the series. Yes, you're not wrong. I'm surprised to see that.
Fusion. Yeah, I definitely saw that comment earlier, and obviously I have a very different opinion on Fusion. It's one of my all-time favorites in the series. Yeah. But I agree. Yeah, it's got some absolutely killer boss fights.
Okay, well let's keep on going here. This is from our pal Metroid Theorist. It's difficult for me to have a least favorite. However, if I choose a game from the Metroid Prime subseries, I will go with Hunters. Here are a number of things I like about Hunters. The opening where we see the different hunters. Music is really good. You know what? You're right. I forgot to bring up. I think we did the Great Metroid Area ranking, and I was kind of like, the music from, I think it was Vesper Defense Outpost. I think, and I was like, the music is like just okay. And I went back and listened to it. And I was like, what the hell am I talking about? This track is awesome. I corrected myself the next month after. I want to say you were on that show, Doom. A couple other things that Metroid Theory says. I like the cutscenes. Hunters is probably the second best looking portrayal of Samus without her helmet. And I like the description for the affinity weapons are written in a manner that tries to sound scientific. So, yeah, that's cool. I can't remember what Samus looks like without her helmet in that game now off the top of my head.
She's in a zero suit as well, but it's like a different facial model.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, well, let's keep going here. This is from Tyler Billing, answering the bonus challenge. It's funny how, like, thank goodness we said bonus challenge. My favorite thing about Metroid 1, so NEStroid, is honestly the sound design. Everything has such a sci-fi sound effect that really puts you in the environment. The music is bumping and really adds to the setting of being isolated on a remote planet. Yeah.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I played around with the golden version of the game on NSO where you like get thrown in and you already have all of the equipment
SP.
and stuff.
Yeah.
I just ran around and tried to figure out where to go and what to do, and just the atmosphere is very dark and kind of creepy, and because there's no map, you're lost. And so it's 100% I agree with that.
I think
I mean,
Ridley sounds awesome. Crazy. You know what? Sorry, Doom. I was talking over you there, but I want to shout out before I forget it. I think the Torian theme in this game is wicked. Underrated theme.
oh yeah. Yeah, it's the Torian theme is phenomenal. It's one of my favorite tracks in the game. And I mean, look, you've heard me go on and on about how important I think Hirokazu Tanaka's original philosophy is, but it is, and you can see it like, starting to take form in this game, in not just the music but the sound design too, and how, it meshes together, and it's so killer. I especially love how it works with the item room, where you'll have the these percussive, the percussive beats, where it almost sounds like, scurrying insects all over the place when you first encounter the Rios. Like, it's such a cool piece of music. And then again, in Torian, how you have all these biomechanical elements that are like incorporated, into the main melody. Like, it's so wicked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a fantastic sound design in that game. You absolutely nailed it. So thank you for that. Okay, well, let's keep going here. We got a few more. This is from Joey Boudin. So two quick ones here. My least favorite is hunters, but what I really like about hunters is the hunters themselves. Yeah, I think we would all agree that, like, it's, again, like, really cool expansion of the Metroid universe. So I'm glad that they're there. And some hunters are definitely cooler than others, but I think, obviously Nintendo knows that, because we were still kicking around with the cool hunters, so that's cool. And Joey also says, and because I like being nice to Federation Force, I like the variety of missions and just seeing the Metroid universe from someone else's point of view other than Samus. Great point.
I agree.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, this is one of our very, very first episodes that we ever did on this podcast. And anybody that hasn't listened to it, I encourage you to go do so. I think this is even before you were on Doom, but like,
oh yeah,
Dak and I were like, the idea for Federation Force is really cool. It's just kind of like Other M, the execution wasn't quite there, and I would say, as important, the timing wasn't right for that game either. But like, again, if Federation Force had come out when Metroid Prime Hunters did, I think people would be talking about it in the same way that a lot of our fans talk about Hunters, and I think a lot of people really like that game, like a lot. It's kind of a cult classic to them, and maybe Federation Force would be the same way if the timing was a little bit different.
Yeah, well before Federation Force came out, like I've been saying for a while, like I think a Federation Marine focused spinoff game would be really cool. Unfortunately, I got the monkey's paw version of that situation, but this is a positive episode, so we're not talking about that.
That'd be dope as long as we don't fight giant morph ball Samus at the end.
Positive.
Maybe actually no. Let's just try again from the ground up. Okay, well, you knew that we were going to get there, so let's talk about Metroid Other M. We got a few here about Metroid Other M.
Oh, yeah.
This is from Mike Campa. I love the cutscenes in Other M that don't include Samus talking about the baby. I mean, I really love them, particularly her moment with Mother Brain. Yeah, and someone actually left a comment right under that said, I think even the most staunch Other M hater can't deny that opening cutscene with Mother Brain is awesome. Which,
oh, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, hell yeah. It's just like a cool modern like retelling of the finale from Super Metroid, which was one of the all-time great moments in Metroid, if not gaming. Like I think. So what's not to like about that? And I agree. I think the cutscenes in Other M are almost all awesome. Now what's in those cutscenes, okay, but the quality of the cutscenes themselves is fantastic.
Really good.
Yeah, I believe the studio that worked on the cutscenes was D-Rockets, and the content, like you said, the content of the cutscenes it varies. But the actual animation and the visual direction of those cutscenes, especially for a Wii game, genuinely incredible. Like for a Wii game to get like those type of quality cutscenes.
And this is another one. This is from Toe, who says, Other M did a very good job of putting the fast movement of the 2D games into the 3D environment. Only reason the game felt slow, let's just say, I'm going to change the word, was the controller plus fewer environment. Oh, okay, so really, like, one of the positive things here is about the movement of the game. I would agree with that. Like, tell me if you guys agree with this sentiment, but like I feel like when you play Other M, for me anyways, there is a time period where you're just kind of like, you want to get going, you want to take the training wheels off, and you just want to like fastly explore the ship, and it probably doesn't happen until towards the latter portion of the game. Like I think like once you get the screw attack, that's when the game starts to feel really good to me, and you can feel really fast, fluid, your movements are great, you're slicing through enemies. That's when it kind of feels like, okay, now we're talking, this is a nice Metroid game, and at least to me, that's when I kind of forget that I'm playing on like the sideways Wiimote, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole introductory training sequence where you're just in the lab with that guy. Oh, I forget what that name was. Where he's like, "Okay, Samus, let's go next door." Yeah, it's just not great.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. Like, what there is a point in that game though. Everything clicks gameplay wise, and like I said, it's unfortunately towards the latter portion of the game. But to your point earlier, Doom, that's like definitely when you're gearing up for Fantoon and some of those later boss fights. I think like I said, I don't actually, it's easy for me to find things in Metroid Other M that I really like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of stuff in Other M that isn't executed 100% correctly, but the idea is kind of brilliant. And like, the dodge, or the sense move as they call it in that game. Mm-hmm. Really cool. That's something I hope they bring back. It looks awesome. I just wish, you didn't just press the same button, on your D-pad. I wish there was like a different like dodge combo that you did, to get, to give it a bit more click. But again, the idea of that is really cool. The idea of this more up close and personal kind of melee finisher game where you're using your projectiles to weaken the enemy and then you go in up close for the finishing blow. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you know what? I mean, this might have happened in Samus Returns anyways, but like, it certainly doesn't take a large leap of faith to be like, okay, maybe Mercury Steam saw the melee ability from Other M and wanted to incorporate in a more natural, fluid way. So like, I think we owe Metroid Other M that as well. And one last thing about Metroid Other M that I really like this comment. This is from JD Dragon again. Nightmare. Its appearance in Metroid Other M. Knowing that it was an X-Parasite copy in Metroid Fusion, I was blown away to see it in Other M as its point of origin. I think that the Galactic Federation even created it, BSL rebuilt it after, only to be eaten and X-copied. I never really... I guess,
That's pretty cool.
You know that, but you don't really, I guess, necessarily put it together. That is kind of cool. And it's one of the few instances where Other M enhances Fusion and not the other way.
Yeah, the first time I played Other M, it kind of seemed to me like it was a little bit of a cheap copy, but I didn't really put it together that it was between Super Metroid and Fusion. And so going back, and when I saw that comment, it kind of blew my mind. I was like, wow, that's true. And it kind of gives me more appreciation for Other M.
Yeah, it's doing some things right. And I think that boss fight actually against Nightmare, like I said earlier, is really fun. The Nightmare fight from Fusion is probably up there with like some of the better 2D fights in the entire series. So it's hard to recapture that level, but like I think it's different and it's really fun. So yeah, I think I think Nightmare is certainly a highlight of that game. And, I'll be honest with you guys, actually, like once you kind of get past the Ridley scene, I think Other M improves a lot. Because there's less cutscene, less dialogue. I mean, granted, you have the Sector Zero stuff, but like, I think the Ridley is like the low point, and after that, you're kind of just like cruising back up on the scale,
Yeah.
All right. Let's keep going here. This is cold. This is ruthless, but I'm gonna read it anyways. This is from Marvin. I'd like to shout out Federation Force because the reception was so bad that it actually convinced Nintendo to do a proper Metroid game.
That doesn't count. That doesn't count.
That doesn't count. Come on, Marvin. That's just so cold. I mean, you just killed Federation Force. This is from our pal Kajira. I actually don't have a least favorite Metroid title because I've actually never played them myself, but could y'all imagine if there was a Metroid CDI game? What would the title be, and what kind of 90s cheese would this game contain? Well, first and foremost, that'd be awesome. I'd love that.
I'm imagining like something kind of like out of Captain N almost.
Yeah.
I feel like we face the Captain N Mother Brain. It's gonna have some really cheesy. I'm thinking like He-Man, Transformers, GI Joe-esque type of 80s cartoon dialogue. That's kind of the first thing that comes to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, maybe even kind of the tone we got from Samus and Joey, which I'm not entirely opposed to.
Call it like the Hunter of Zebus or something like that.
Yeah.
I think you're bang on. I think it would have been Captain N. Anybody looking for a CDI version of Metroid, first and foremost, you have to go watch Mother Brain in Captain N, because it is. You might think you're ready, but you're not. And then there, in the comic version of Captain N, which ran in Nintendo Power, there was a version of Samus. Now, Samus never made it to the cartoon, but the version of Samus was actually quite funny. She was like, so a little bit of Captain N backstory here. Your main hero is a guy named Kevin. He's sucked into the video game world, and there's this princess named Lana, who is like the princess of the video game world, and they're in love or whatever, and will they, won't they? And Samus is like this bubbly, kind of upbeat, like I don't know. She's kind of like Asuka from Neon Genesis, and kind of like full of herself a little bit. And it's funny to see their interaction in the comic. It's worth a read, and we'll get there actually one day on Metroid Manga in Review. We'll do Captain N. So it's a different version of Samus that you've never seen, and I actually think that it would be I think it'd be worth. I think that title could have been a lot of fun, and it's worth pointing out actually. There's a new game that came out called Arzette. Do you know what I'm talking about, Doom?
Yeah, it's from like that original CDI team. They brought like the original voice actors back to make like a game like the original games, but it's a brand new original IP.
And it's not like it was just one guy. Like so the guy that made it actually made computer ports of both Zelda CDI games. Well, I shouldn't say he made ports of 2 of the 3, Wand Gamelon and Faces of Evil. And he was like, yeah, I love these games, and I'm going to make a spiritual sequel to them. And a couple years later, this game just came out, and it's supposed to be awesome. So there we go. Okay, well, let's keep moving on here. This doesn't exactly understand the assignment, but I want to read it here if I may, because this is more so a nitpick about one of our favorite Metroid games, which I don't know. Let's just have an inversion really quickly here. We're going to do a little bit of sinning instead of winning. This is from Alec Carde. As someone who has been playing Metroid Zero Mission lately, I really don't like how the power bomb is unlocked so late in the game. It makes completion unnecessary, backtracky, and a bit of a chore.
I agree. That's not what this episode is about.
100%
It's not, but it is kind of nice because like for as long as I can remember on this show, I've been complaining how like the screw attack isn't the ultimate weapon anymore, and like now the power bomb is. But the problem is that when you get the power bomb and it's the last item in the game, you have all those other expansions to go back and get, where the screw attack really just enhances your movement, which makes it the perfect final weapon to have in a game. So you didn't understand the assignment, but I thought I'd read your statement anyways, because I agree with it actually. All right, well, let's keep going here. Let's do something. Let's do a little bit of a different one here. This is from Shinzilla. Metroid 2, being my first game, was a pain in the butt to beat. Probably my most hated title. I could go back to Metroid NES. Blah 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 blah. Okay, this person did not understand the assignment either. Let's move on. I thought we were coming towards something there. That was gonna be like, but I really like this, but wasn't coming.
They reached the character limit. There we go.
Yeah. Okay, well, what about this? This is from Mario. Samus Returns has incredible stereoscopic 3D on the 3DS.
It does. I really like a 3D a lot in that game.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I have to admit, I think by the time that Samus Returns came out, I was like just so over 3D. It's very rare. Like I probably can count the number of games that I played like 3D from start to finish on one hand. And it was probably those early, like Ocarina of Time 3D was one of them, but I'm almost certain I've never played Samus Returns with my 3D on. Maybe I should.
Yeah, so I didn't get a 3DS until the year prior. to play Federation Force, weirdly enough. But yeah, I'm still to this day like catching up on like all those 3DS games, and so to me at least, Samus Returns, it was still like a fresh 3D experience. I would play it in 3D more. It just, unfortunately, it really hurts my eyes, which is a bummer because I really like the 3D effect.
Well, and the thing too, and I even have the new 3DS, which is the 3D is supposed to be greatly improved. I don't know if that's true or not because I don't play a lot of games in 3D. But the thing about playing in 3D is like you have to be playing at a certain like rigidness, right? Like you have to have the 3DS right in front of you. You have to be staring straight at it, and you can't deviate if you want to get that full 3D experience, which is very antithetical to how I want to play my portable games, right? Like I want to be on the couch, like laid out, like having the 3DS like kind of above my head. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't exactly translate over to playing the way that they intended it to be.
Yeah, my wife likes to watch me play games, and if I put it on 3D, she has a migraine like 5 minutes in.
Yeah,
because it's hard to watch.
It is, yeah, and this is a little bit of Spiteri lore here, but like I have really awful eyes, like really bad. Like I wear contacts, and like my eyes are strained all the time. So like playing in 3D is also for me just kind of like I don't know if I want to do it, but I am surprised to see Samus Returns as someone's least favorite Metroid game. I really love that game, but hey, no problem. Let's keep going here. Let's go back to Other M, and this is, I think, a very common Other MW that a lot of people would say, and this comes from Wasp Ranger, and they love Anthony, and who doesn't? Generally, great addition to the cast and one of the few real characters in Other M, more so than even Adam. He has a great dynamic with Samus that feels wholesome, and I genuinely hope we see him again sometime. I would even take that a step farther, say one of the few like real characters in the series, because there's not a lot of them. A lot of them are just monsters.
Yep.
God, no style. Banger line.
Can you imagine? I saw somebody posting in our Discord today, what if Silex is... They even had the meme recreated. They had Silex's mask and like, hey, remember me? Or whatever he says. All right, well let's keep on going here. There's a lot of Other M, and a lot of pretty cool things about a lot of other people are saying about Other M, which is great to see. Let's try that Metroid 2 one again. This is from Joseph. The various suit design, Spider Ball, and Baby Metroid from the original Metroid 2. Too easy to get lost without a map system, which is why it's low on my list. But I really love these things from the game. Zach, you mentioned the Baby Metroid earlier, but I guess we didn't talk about it. Like the various suit design really looks impactful in this game, and like has like the shoulder pads. Like it really looks cool.
Yeah,
Metroid.
Go ahead.
Oh no, you go. You can go first. Yeah.
I was just gonna say it brings a level of, or it brings a more dynamic range to the design of the suit, and I really appreciate it. I love the way it's done in Samus Returns, and when you get the gravity suit, it expands on that so much more. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because I talked about this when we were doing the definitive ranking of Metroid 2, but like in a way it's because of Metroid 2's limitations of being black and white on the Game Boy that we have those shoulder pads. If the game was in color, because the reason why they did the shoulder pads is because they needed a way to differentiate the power in various suits, and so they needed a brand new sprite to convey that. If the game was in color, we might not have got that, and that's like the most iconic, Samus design now is those big, bulky basketball shoulder pads now.
Yeah.
And they pretty much nailed it right out of the gate with Metroid 2. Not just, not just the hand-drawn art, but like the sprite work too. It just looks so fantastic.
And also Samus's ship, her gunship as well. Like that wasn't a NEStroid, and that gunship looks awesome. And you know what? I mean, like, since we're talking about Metroid 2 and some of the artwork, like, I mean, the Metroids themselves, like, that's pretty cool stuff, man. Like the evolution, like the Queen Metroids look awesome. Like everything looks really cool. And I want to keep it on Metroid 2 here for a second because I thought that this was a great comment. This is from Betty Groff, apologist. I don't know who Betty Groff is. Metroid 2 is my least favorite, but I do enjoy that it is a creative way to go about the game and could be used again. It felt like we were actually playing through Samus doing a job she was hired for. Yeah. Like, we kind of talked about
that before.
Samus is a bounty hunter who does not do a lot of bounty hunting. This kind of feels like the Federation's like, all right, Samus, you're the only person who could do that. How much can we write you this check for to get rid of all these Metroids?
I literally never thought about it before, but yeah, like literally your job throughout the game, you are tasked with like killing Metroids, killing bounties. That is, wow, that kind of just blew my mind actually.
Kind of cool.
Oh,
That's a
it's all about perspective, isn't it? 'Cause that's
Yeah.
a new one that I've never thought about. That's really cool.
I don't know who Betty Groff is, but I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say I like him before I find out who they are. Actually, let's just. But I like that comment. That's a great comment. Well, how about this one? Actually, this is from Crystal Golem, and we didn't really talk about this. So the least favorite game is Metroid Prime Federation Force. Okay, but it had plenty of cool things going on, and it had a pretty fun mini game, Blast Ball. Okay.
no comment.
Oh, you don't like Blast Ball? Okay.
I can't say on this episode what my opinion is.
Moving right on. Let's go to the next one here. This is from Synth Mage. My least favorite is Metroid Fusion for the weighty physics and hand-holdiness linearity. I do love the narrative world building though, despite the linearity of it, and really the terror of the series that can bring with the SAX. Yeah.
Dude, they've never been able to recreate that. And it's just so well done. I, as a kid, did not want to go into areas with the SAX. I hated it.
And let me add some context here to Synthmage's comment here, because they followed it up by saying like they are a Super Metroid speedrunner who's played Super Metroid a lot for the last 10 years, and that makes sense because Super Metroid, people call it floaty. I always called Metroid Fusion heavy because I've played a lot of Super Metroid, but I've played a lot of both games, and they're very different physics styles. So like I definitely get it, but yeah, that's I don't know. I like you're definitely right. The SAX is something that was so unique at the time, so terrifying. It really hasn't been replicated to that degree since. The Emmys tried, but they weren't the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call Fusion heavy. I would call Zero Mission. That's the game that I think of when I think of heavy physics, and Zero Missions are my favorite physics. But yeah. That being said, in regards to the actual comment, yeah, I absolutely love the narrative. I love the essay. It's kind of a blend of like The Thing and the Terminator, and throughout the throughout Fusion score, you can hear like a lot of like very brief references to like 80s slasher films too. Like
Yeah.
one of the samples that Minako Hamano uses is the from like Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
and that's like prevalent throughout the soundtrack, and so I definitely really love those influences for Fusion in particular.
Oh yeah, dude. And sorry.
No, go ahead, Zach.
I was just gonna say the amount of, no pun intended, dread that you feel entering those zones. It's intense, especially when you're going to clear out the vegetation to get the plasma beam in the tropic sector. When you drop down and you have to literally fight and run for your life to get away from the SAX. As a kid, I literally would stop and just turn my Game Boy off because I didn't want to do that part. It scared me. And they just haven't been able to recreate that in Metroid.
I've been trying for years to get some of my Zelda Dungeon peers to play like Metroid games, and that specific scene where you drop down in Sector 2 and you have to run away from the SAX is the one that people are like, nope, I'm out for playing this. Like, I'm not doing it.
It's scary, bro.
It's scary and it's tough. It's definitely tough. Okay, well let's keep on going here. There's a couple more about Other M. But let's talk about some of the positive things from Metroid Other M. Again, so this is from TJ. Other M had an awesome Ridley design and a great Ridley fight. You know, I dare say, I do not think I have ever heard somebody say that they really like the design of Ridley and Other M.
That's a hot take.
That's a hot take.
It's a good hot take though. I don't hate it.
Yeah. You know what? It's the kind of
do...
hot take I like to see. I wouldn't disagree with it, and I would say it's a hot take, but I'm glad that somebody out there feels like that.
The only thing I dislike about that whole encounter is Samus breaking down and freaking out after she's fought and defeated Ridley several times. His design and the actual fight, that's not that bad. I don't like the way he came about.
Yeah.
But, I enjoy it. I enjoy the music, it's just...
Yeah, you know
okay.
what?
A hot take that I can agree with a little bit.
I won't. That's not what this show is about. We're winning, not sinning. But I do love that you said that.
I
That's
appreciate
great.
it. That's
Yeah.
what I'll say. I appreciate that someone has that opinion.
You know what? I remember one time over in the Zelda cast, we were talking and we were doing like a fan Q&A, something similar to this, and someone was like, I think I actually probably like Triforce Heroes more than Ocarina of Time. And it made me want to die, but I was like, that's great. I love that. I do love that for you. Like,
I love that for you. But
yeah, that's fine. No problem.
That feels that to me that feels like a take that I would specifically tell Andy just to make him mad though. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That doesn't feel like something that would legitimately comes from the heart.
Oh, who knows?
That's a stressor. That's like, we can't be friends.
Some of those youngins, maybe, I don't know. Okay, a couple more from Other M, and then we have a Super Metroid one actually, which I'm excited about. But the next one here, this is from Trav Guy. I really like the ability to swap between first and third person in Metroid Other M. I wish the controls weren't so limiting, but I think it added some nice depth to the game.
I agree. And shout out to Trav Guy, by the way. He had just released a review of an hour-long review of Metroid Zero Mission to commemorate it coming to NSO, and it's really good. And y'all should definitely watch it. He's a cool dude.
There it is. Yeah.
Awesome.
You know what, Trav? I appreciate that you said this. I don't know necessarily that I'm agreeing with you, but I just kind of like that there are other people that just, I don't know, like these other details that maybe didn't hit for everyone else. So it pretty much is similar what I said last time, where like I love that you love it. I don't know about that, but I love that you love it. Okay.
I wish they would have kept. Oh, sorry. I wish they would have kept that out rather than limit you so much on it. But I do appreciate it. I just, the fact that you can't move.
Well,
it kills
that's
it.
okay. That's okay. Let's
we're
keep
winning.
going.
We're winning.
Brawny Sonic fan. As weird as it may sound, I like that Other M's hard mode is actually hard. Instead of just making the enemy stronger, they went with making Samus go all game with 1 life bar and only 10 missiles. That is a clever hard mode.
You pronounced it. You pronounced that name similarly during another. I'm pretty sure that's Brony Sonic fan, not Brawny Sonic fan.
Oh, sorry, Brawny, whatever. Sorry,
Brainy Sonic fan.
Isn't LeBron James' son named Brawny? Like that's what I'm thinking of when I see that name. I could be wrong. Anyway, whatever.
I have no idea. Well, now I'm looking.
You've derailed the whole thing here, Doom. Thanks a lot, pal. I have to say,
hated me because I was right.
Well, among others,
Bronny James. Yep, that's his name. Bronny James.
I've never played Other M in hard mode, and I don't know that I ever will. To be honest with you, I don't know that I will. But I do like that. I think that's cool, and I do like when a hard mode is more than just like enemies have more HP. I do like that as well.
Yeah, they're not damage sponges. You really just have 1 energy tank and 10 missiles, and it's hard. It's hard as hell. I couldn't get past. Oh gosh, it's difficult getting past the first fight for me.
Yeah, I don't know that I would do it.
I did beat Other M on hard mode. The thing that I don't like about that is because basically the only real difference in hard mode is that there's just no expansion pickups. So no missiles, no E-tanks. No charge accelerators that are in that game. You still get your main items, but you don't get any of the expansions. But otherwise, it's the same game.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, you don't get to do the 100% section, including the Fantoon fight. That's just not available in hard mode, which is a real bummer because that's one of my favorite parts of Other M, as we talked about earlier.
Indeed.
I didn't know that. That sucks.
Well, this one is about Super Metroid. This is from ZD, and I was hoping for a little bit more actually, but because it's a glowing. It says Super Metroid has good music and probably the best map in terms of how memorable and how many areas there were in Zebes. Also, the detail with the Mocktroids, seeing the Metroids in the background of the wrecked ship, to seeing the fully cloned Metroids at the end was neat. Yeah. Okay. I love. I mean,
yeah.
I could talk for a long time about everything I really love about Super Metroid. So, I would like to pick people's brain about, like, what is it about Super Metroid? What is it about Samus Returns? What is it about Metroid Fusion that's not your it doesn't make it your cup of tea necessarily. That I think is interesting to me. Well, let's keep going here. Stall for time for me for a second here, Doom, while I try and find some ones that we haven't kind of covered for a little bit.
Sure thing. Yeah, so going back on that Super Metroid question, while obviously Andy and I we've had our disagreements about Meridia, but like Meridia aside, I think Super Metroid is honestly like the gold standard of Metroid map design, and to me that is like the template that, like, I don't want to say every game, but I think most games should follow moving forward. I especially love how, kind of the first third of the game, the game keeps the training wheels on. It does a similar thing of Dread where, like, it'll keep locking you out of areas. Like, there's, like, the gate in Brinstar Green, and then there's the Ripper Tunnel in Brinstar Red. There's, like, little bits that'll keep you locked in. And then after you get the power bombs, you come back to Crateria, and then all of those... And then immediately, every single gap that was blocking you off, it's opened again. And it's kind of the game's way of telling you that, like, hey, we're taking the training wheels off now. We're no longer keeping you contained to one area at a time. You've gotten enough handle of the game's mechanics at this point that we're just gonna let loose and just let you get lost. And if you end up in another area, that's part of the enjoyment of this game. And I really respect the hell out of Super Metroid for doing that. And I want more Metroid games to do that in the future, or at least give the option to allow maybe people like us who are more experienced in this genre, give us the option to, just get lost a little bit like that.
Ironically, actually, I love Super Metroid's map, but I definitely do think it was improved in Fusion and Zero Mission, particularly with, like, the green representing, like, the hidden areas and the circles letting you know that there was an expansion there. Super Metroid could be tough. It could definitely be tough in terms of not knowing where to go, for sure.
You're thinking of the pause map. I'm thinking of, like, the actual physical game space.
Yes.
I love that sense of the sense of progression, and just kind of that overall sense of, like, interconnectivity.
Yeah.
I think Super Metroid just still to this day does it better than any other game.
Yes,
but yes, I do
right.
agree. Like, the map enhancements that we've gotten since then are vast improvements.
Yeah, you're totally right. I was literally just thinking map in my brain. Well, let's just do one more here, and then because the rest of these are kind of we've talked about them or we've covered them before. So let's just shout out this comment from Marshall, and this is one that I'm surprised that we didn't get earlier. And yes, it's about Other M, but it's a great comment. I love the smooth transition of third and first person in Other M, as well as running like the Flash. So obviously the speed booster. I think Other M nailed the Shine Spark, actually, and yes. I think we talked about this in one of our Metroid Prime 4 episodes. But if Metroid Prime 4 included the speed booster and it was exactly the same as Other M's, I think that would be fine, actually. Even if your Shine Spark was just like a big jump, I'm okay with that as like a starting off point. I think that's fine.
I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think for at least me, one of the big things that, like, puts the speed booster over the top is, that sense of chaining moves together to keep your momentum. That's not really present in Other M. That being said, though, because this is about positivity, I do really like what Other M did. And for, the first foray into 3D speed boosting, like, I think it did an exceptional job, especially when you consider other abilities like, the screw attack in the Prime series, for example.
Yeah, like, I totally agree. Like, even Super Metroid. Like, Super Metroid didn't really do there's not a ton of Shine Spark puzzles, and the ones that are there are pretty pedestrian, right? Like, but even if, like, Metroid Prime 4 had that to start off with, I'm gonna take that. I think that's pretty cool. That'd be kind of cool, actually, if you could do the Other M style Shine Spark, and, like, maybe you can, like, hit a target or something. If you hit a target, you bounce off it, hit another target. That could be kind of neat. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of. I like what Dread did with the Shine Spark, because you can literally continuously chain your movements and bounce off the wall and stuff. And
we've come a long way from the OG days in Super Metroid there, but yeah, I quite like the Shine Spark in Other M. I think that it's, and the speed boost. Maybe we should separate the two. Like, I think the speed boost worked really, really well in Other M, and I would love to see that return. And you know what? Marshall also said, like, I'm really hoping for Other M to come on the Switch so that I can play it. And they said, like, please don't hate me for it. No, I want it to come on the Switch too.
Every Metroid game to be playable on one console.
Yeah.
Now, Do I think it's gonna happen? Probably not. I don't I don't see that happening anytime soon. But you know what? If Other M did come to the Switch, I would not be in an uproar. I'd be like, sweet. I think preserving games, even the ones that I'm not a fan of, is very important. Just even outside of being a Metroid fan and wanting the entire series accessible to everyone.
Yeah. If Other M was announced to be coming to the Switch and it was $50, I'd be buying it. Like, just because I want to play it on my Switch and not have to fire up my Wii and everything. And if it did come to the Switch, you got to figure it's coming with some improvements in terms of controls as well. So I mean, that alone might be enough to take it from maybe some people are talking about some different games other than Metroid Other M on this list, rather than about I'd say a generous half of these has been about Metroid Other M. So yeah, there you go. Well, I'll tell you what, we didn't get a single person saying that any of the Metroid Prime games was one of their least favorite, except for Hunters and Federation Force, of course. But yeah, it looks like the games that were safe here were the Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3, Zero Mission, Dread, nobody said anything about. We did have one or two about Samus Returns, but not very many. So yeah, we had one about Super Metroid, so there you go.
There's another, speaking of the Speed Booster, there's another comment that I remember reading that I don't think we read, but someone said that they really liked that the Speed Booster sounds like a choo-choo train, and I 100% agree with that. I do love that.
Does it legit sound like a train? I can't picture
it.
It
does.
sounds like.
Yeah, it does.
But it's Samus's footsteps. It's like a, and it's like, and it does kind of sound like a train. It's like, yeah, I do like that.
I like that. Maybe there's a mod where she's just going full like Timmy the Train. What's the train's name?
Thomas the Tank Engine, baby.
Thomas, not Timmy.
Fake fan over
wow.
here.
Boy said Timmy the Train.
My 3-year-old nephew, if he heard this coming out of my mouth right now, he'd probably never speak to me again. Unbelievable. Okay, well, you know what? Thank you so much to everybody that let us know what your favorite things about your least favorite games are. Maybe we'll do the opposite Monday. Maybe instead of winning, we'll be sinning. And the good thing about that is that, hey, you're still talking about your favorite Metroid game, so there's a little bit of baked-in positivity there, nevertheless. So, very cool for everybody that helped us out with this week, especially on short notice. If we didn't read your comment, I'm sorry. We'll definitely try and get to it next time that we do an episode like this, which we will. And yeah, just again, obviously, thank you to everybody for contributing. It's always really fun to get different opinions and whatnot over on this show. So, very cool of everybody that stopped by to to let us know what some of their favorite things about their least favorite game were. Before we get out of here, let me throw it over to you, Zach, because you're not on the show every single week. Tell people about you, where you are, what you do, where they can find you if they want to check you out.
Well, so I do a podcast with my friend Ash. It's called Collateral Gaming Podcast. It's pending a change, but the only video game podcast that matters.
Wow.
And, I'll actually,
asterisk.
asterisk. Yeah, we'll put a pin in that. But I'm over on Twitter, Mr._Gio. Y'all come share some love. Come talk to me. I'm actually going to start streaming here very soon. I'm probably going to start with the Metroid games, and then I'll go into the Zelda games, and then I might do some multiplayer stuff. It just depends on whatever I'm feeling or wherever the road takes me. But the handle's going to be at The Legend of Cio. And I'm really excited to get started here. And I always love coming on here and talking to you guys. And I don't think actually Doom and I have had the chance to share an episode together. So it was really cool to have a conversation with you. And I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think the last time you were on, you were specifically filling in for me because something happened, I guess. But yeah, it's really cool to actually finally get a chat with you.
Yeah, the last time I was on here, it was with Lilith and Andy, and we were talking about our favorite things about Super Metroid, or I think we were doing something about Super Metroid.
Some kind of anniversary for one.
And then the Dead Cells episode. So it's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate you guys having me back. Can't wait to come back at some point in the future.
Yeah, heck yeah, anytime. And you're even doing it's ironic that you brought up NEStroid, because I tasked you with playing NEStroid, so there you go. Support this man streaming, because he's playing a game he doesn't want to play at someone else's dubious request here.
I will say, the turbo mode in some of the ROMs that I've found make combat significantly more simple. And honestly, I've been enjoying exploring. I'm going to play through the game once, and then I'm going to go back through when I have a better feel of it
Okay.
and start taking snapshots and stuff. So I'm actually not hating my life right now. Every time I hate my life, it's when I'm playing the original Zelda. But we'll talk about that at some other point.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, Doom, any final thoughts about anything we talked about here?
No, I'm just really glad that we got to get together and, put a positive light on some games that, they don't really get the opportunity to shine that much, because I really thought it was important, to have an episode dedicated to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, all three of us, as well as, a bunch of the lovely comments out there, did a fantastic job at bringing that to life.
Yeah, I think so. Well, this was a pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you for hanging out with me today. We are, of course, going to get out of here, but we do want to encourage everybody to, well, a couple things here. Number one, check us out wherever you get your podcast. Go like, subscribe, recommend, review, rate, all that kind of stuff. If you got a Metroid fan in your life, tell them about this podcast. We're doing it weekly. We've been doing it weekly for almost 5 years, somehow, some way. So share a little bit of love with us, and make sure that you check out OmegaMetroid.com. That has a complete archive of every episode we've ever done. It has guides. If you're playing NEStroid and need a map or whatever have you, it has, we're about to post some new cool stuff over there as well, which, by the way, check out our YouTube channel. Make sure that you are liked and subscribed if you want to see our faces as we do these episodes, as well as, of course, give us a follow wherever you are over on social. Check me out. I'm at Spiteri316. Doom is at Doom_Cross. Zach is at Mr_Geo, and we are at Omega Metroid Pod. We do have a Patreon channel if you want to take your Omega Metroid love to the next level. We got a long-running series called the Great Metroid Area Ranking, where, as it sounds, we are ranking every single area in the Metroid series, so go ahead and check that out. That, my friends, is going to do it for us, but we will see everybody back here next week, so until then, take care.
Right on.